Hi guys, I am Rocio Ortega. I am the new guest here at El Paso Creatives podcast show. I am a local artist, but I'm also a teacher, and I'm here to kind of give you an insight of what it's like right now being an educator and also being an artist. So
Awesome, Rocio. It's a pleasure to have you on today's show. I'm today's host, Isaac Hernandez. I love having a bunch of artists here because just looking at the wall behind you, I'm just like, there's so many variety of different things going on, from like that woman up there to like the whole thing that's over there on the right, tripping me out a little bit, to the dog. So I'm like, it's so cool to
yes,
just see beautiful art. Those
yes.
are your pets?
This one actually was painted by my boyfriend, but this one I painted myself. Yeah, this one is Smokey. I am missing one more dog, and I'm really sad because I feel like I feel like he's upset at me because he's not
You're
over
missing the
there.
painting or you're missing the dog?
I'm missing the
Oh,
painting.
okay.
Yeah, no, of the other dog.
So I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is like your whole artwork. I know it's a different variety of different things. We've seen you at shows where you do live body painting. So just tell a little bit more about your artwork and why you got into it, what it means to you.
So I started doing art really young. It wasn't as serious. It was more of my escape. It it helped me calm down a lot. I think. Well, it did. I had a lot of anger issues when I was younger, so it definitely calmed me down a lot. Um, so I went into middle school, and that's when I started getting a little bit more serious. And in high school, I ended up having one art class. I was so excited about it, and it was what opened me to the life of art education, because I was thinking, well, what am I going to do when I get older, when I graduate? Everybody thinks about that. What am I going to do when I graduate? And I was like, I think my teacher talked to me like, you would make a great art teacher. And I'm like, really? And I thought about it, and I was like, I want to show, I want to show kids how to create.
Yeah.
And if it's not how, just to create anything, whether it be photography or filmmaking, books. So that was really my main target.
Mhm.
Um, in high school, I started becoming a little bit more like focused, and once I went into college, I went to UTEP, and
Mhm.
I I studied. I'm a bachelor's of art and a minor in all levels education. So being a bachelor's in art, I got to taste a little bit of everything from um, printmaking to life drawing um, to sculpture, which I learned how to weld, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I always went back to just painting, and I noticed that my style became I like portraits. I like doing portraits of people, and it had a lot of pattern in it. It was I love graffiti, but it was very inspired by that graffiti, that kind of just like messy type of texture and patterns and things like that. So I ended up starting to do that a lot. And then when maybe the past 4 years, I ended up getting asked, I started doing some face painting because I like to do like FX makeup
Yeah.
type of stuff too.
Mhm.
And I got asked by the coordinator of the neon paint party at Wet n Wild. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard about them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I got asked, hey, do you want to do some neon face paint? And I'm like, well, I never experimented with neon, but I was like, sure, I'll do face paint. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I could do it. So I ended up doing it for about 4 years. Consecutive 4 years, I was a face painter there. And that's where my love for body art really started. And I started painting some of my friends, like their faces and their bodies, and just the black light UV paint was, oh man, I just love it. I don't know, it's something about it that is amazing.
And it's pretty cool. Like I've seen you do it at the live shows too. And
Yeah.
it does catch a lot of cool attention. Like it's something different rather than just displaying artwork like you see. And then it's neon paint too. Like it's a UV light. So that's a lot of uniqueness too. I wanted to jump back a little bit and then just ask you, so
Yeah.
you've been inspired by like your teachers, right? And like your art teacher, and that's how you got into it. So
Yes.
you as an educator now, how important do you think it is to teach kids art? Because a lot of kids are like art, they see it, they're like, nah, like something else.
Yeah.
But like given the opportunity for them to try it out, how important do you think it is?
You know what? I feel like it's extremely important. I had a conversation with a lot of my like my students and just people around me, and some of them, yeah, they did not think that art was important, but it's the basis to really learning your passion and how to create.
Right,
I think it's important for all of us to know how to create anything, really. Yes, you may be like your passion is sports or things like that, but you need to find something that will not only create positive energy, but release that negative energy as well. Um, I used to want to be an art therapist. And I feel like I mean, there is art therapy out there, but a lot of my students that I've had, I even taken some of my students that have a little bit of a rough background,
right.
and I would place them in my art club. And I noticed a great change in their demeanor and their attitude and their behavior, just because they were focused on one thing and
Mhm.
they didn't have their minds on anything else. And I think that's what's important about creating. You're focused on one thing, you are trying to create something that has never been made before, that's something that you're making.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, honestly. And once I hope that people really start some people start seeing that art is really one of the, I mean, you would not have your movies, you would not have your
Exactly.
music. The whole entertainment industry would not be there.
And people think art, like when they hear art, they think it's just painting or things like that. But it's like film, it's everything in the art industry too. So I always like to say this phrase, and I say it a lot, is like the earth without art is just like if you take out that little
Yes, it's bland. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, from your clothing to your patterns in your clothing to
Even
uh,
fashion has art. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, so many things um have an art basis to them, and that's what I try to show my kids. Like, you see that backpack, you think that's art? And they're like, no. And I'm like, who do you think made the pattern?
Yeah.
And they start really thinking about just the little details in that. Even from fabrication of like markers, believe it or not, like just the fabrication of markers, there's artists and scientists that go in and see, like, the colors, and man, the world would be definitely it.
Colors, like you said, the colors is art itself. Like
Yes.
imagine seeing the world black and white. You know how boring that would be. Yeah.
No.
So
Yes.
it,
I don't want to.
I don't want to imagine that.
No.
I agree. Like it's very therapeutic too. Like to just get yourself, it's like a gateway out of anything. It's like you just release your mind from it, get a piece of paper, start drawing. And so how is your creative process like? So you could like from like now, how does your creative process of creating an art piece like? What's the most challenging part of it?
you know, I think the main part that is like my art creative process, how do I explain it? I'm just so random, Isaac. Honestly, I am so
Evolving.
random. It as soon as an idea triggers, like something small can just trigger an idea, and then I am super hyper focused on that idea and
Yeah.
wanting to do it. So um I think the most difficult part for me is having patience. I believe it or not, I feel like it is a good thing about me and a bad thing, because honestly, I am a very fast painter. I pride myself in that, because I do paint quite quickly. Um, for example, there is a mural that I have of Katrina,
Yeah.
and it's at the Old Sheepdog Brewery.
Right.
Great place, great beer, guys. But I can show you guys a picture. Let's see. Oh,
Yeah.
reflection.
And I've seen that one at the sheepdog, the big wall that's
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah, and you know what? I'm very proud of it. But I literally was there just 2 days, and um, I feel like for me, just being a little bit more patient, I feel like I would create a lot more detailed work.
Right.
Um,
But that's not all as bad because like, you know, when you're creative, like you want to just go out and just throw everything on there. And I feel like that's what makes the art is that
yeah,
like you don't have to be like super slow or super fast. You just
yeah,
go whatever you think, throw it on the canvas, and the end result is just it's amazing what I've seen people create, you know. So
yes, no, I agree. Yeah, I do. You are right. Um, yeah, I feel like my type of art is just more in the moment, and whether I'm feeling down or I'm feeling happy, it just comes out. I don't honestly, I don't really think about it too much. I grab one idea and I just kind of go with it. Like even my body art, I don't necessarily like have a specific plan map. It's just okay, I'm gonna kind of go with like a floral theme
yeah.
or something, and then I just go for it.
But that's art, you know, and it's like I keep saying, like it's therapeutical, you know, to just like whether you just throw out your emotions onto a canvas. Like I've even seen this painting one time. I think it sold. Somebody duct taped a banana to a canvas, and it sold for like millions of dollars. I don't know if you heard of it.
No,
It was like in France or something, or in Italy. Like it sold for a hundred
man,
thirty thousand
I duct
dollars.
tape a banana.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's crazy, you know, like the way even art sells, you know. So,
That is, yes.
but before we get to that topic, I wanted to see who were your role models. So like I've seen this artist that I always thought was interesting. His name was Edgar Degas. He used to go to ballerina recitals and then paint the ballerinas onto a canvas.
Yes, I
Become a photographer.
actually in art history we did learn about him.
Yeah,
You know what? I'm gonna sound kind of self-centered, but I feel like it's me.
I agree, man.
My greatest role model is myself, to be honest. I didn't have much, and I gotta say my grandmother. My grandmother was there for a lot of it. I didn't really have a lot of art inspiration growing up, or not not even like real role models that I could look up to growing up. So when I noticed that I had a certain drive when it came to my artwork, um, I honestly I became really proud of myself, and I kept trying new things, and that's all you really should do is just try it. You know, if you don't like it, then you don't.
Right,
And that's part of life, and that's part of growing. You know, I feel like I wish that I I wish that I could get that out more and just tell people, you know, just try it.
right.
Just really just do your best and try it, because I became my own role model, and seeing like not, I look back at the things that I've done, and I honestly I'm so proud of myself.
You inspired yourself like to do better every time, right?
Yes, exactly. It just pushed myself. I have a little bit of a competitive side too, like side
Mm.
of myself, and that helps too, you know,
Be
like
against
okay,
yourself.
yeah, it gets me going.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you. Yeah, I always feel like the best role model is you're always yourself too. So I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%. Going back now to the whole, you know, how to find ways to be an artist and getting paid. How do you go out there and seek opportunities, whether it's paid or not? How do you go about, you know, becoming an artist who is, for lack of a better word, making it as an artist?
You know what? It's honestly for me, just meeting people. Meeting people is has been um I am pretty I'm like selectively social, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I get into my moods where I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. But then I really just try. I try to go to art events. That's the main thing. I try to go to art events. If I see something on Instagram that's somewhat art related, I try to see who posted it, um, who mentioned it or anything. And a lot of it is just really communication, word of mouth. I met Fox randomly, and then I met you randomly, and it started to become this hub of just artistic creators, and it was amazing to see how many opportunities there actually is in El Paso to
Yeah.
share your art, to sell your art. And it showed me, wow, you know, I had a lot of people tell me like, oh man, you're gonna go into art and like that's not gonna make you any profit. I'm like,
No. No, and you see, that's exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's exactly what I faced personally when I was doing photography, videography, and graphic designing. Was people would always tell me like you won't get anywhere, or you can't turn it as a career, or it's just a hobby, or people would put you down.
Yeah,
So that's the number one reason why we created what we created as far as this brand is because we want to be that support system or the system that has people giving the opportunity for them to showcase their artwork or go sell it or be represented or something like that. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people do go out there and they bring artists down and they have such a big talent that because they listen to what people told them, they don't pursue that talent and they lose it. So I'm glad
yeah.
you mentioned
That is so sad, Isaac. I really, I get sad because I see a lot of people with talent and same thing. One
yeah.
person told them like, you're not gonna make a living. And they need to see that you can.
Mhm.
Okay, there's so many opportunities out there, you just have to look for them. Some may come to you, but sometimes you just have to look for them.
Yeah.
There are so many different, sorry, my dogs.
You're fine.
um, there's so many different types of markets out there for your type of art. You may think, oh, nobody's gonna want to buy that. Believe me when I say that there are so many people out there that are gonna buy random stuff because they like it.
Like I
There
mentioned, the guy with the banana and the duct tape.
Yes. Yes. I've had art that I'm like, nobody's gonna buy that, and that's the first thing that sells. So go to art shows, start connecting with people. That's like my main recommendation. Start just connecting with people, seeing what they do, and try it out.
That's what we mentioned in every episode is like network and going down and connecting with people is probably the biggest thing, no matter what you are, that you need to do if you want to grow. Is just
Yeah,
kind of networking with people, collaborations, things like that. So
exactly.
even in collaborations, like how important do you think that is to collaborate with a different artist?
You know what? I think it is extremely important because it opens you to, like, let's say I have a group of people just looking at my art, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another group of people looking at the other person's art. But when we come together, now we are double. Now we have double the amount of people that, hey, oh, he collaborated with her. Oh wow, like who's that?
Mhm.
And just connections, just making connections all the way through. I feel like that's important.
And you expand your creativity too. Like you see someone's style and you're like, oh look, maybe I can implement that with mine, or maybe they can help me out with this. You learn something every time you collaborate with somebody else that you didn't know you could do.
Yes, 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 definitely.
So what are things that you do to get better every day, like as an artist?
To get better, you know what? I draw with my students. I Every time like we have a certain assignment, I try to draw with them, or I'll be doing the project with them.
Yeah.
I do a lot of demonstrations to just keep myself active. I
Mhm.
try to sketch every day, but that always doesn't happen. That's fine, that's part of it. There are some times, like I call them like dry spells, where I
Yeah.
don't really do anything creative because I'm busy with life, or I'm not as motivated. But as soon as I get to it, I just try to do it every day and try new things, um, find what works, look at what doesn't,
Mhm.
fix that, improve it. I actually call it have you heard of the engineering design process?
No, no, I haven't.
Okay, so the school I work for is like a STEAM academy, and I teach also architecture,
Yeah.
like green architecture, and we talk about the engineering design process, and it's a process where you follow these steps, but it applies to life. Like, for example, the first step is, what's the problem? What are possible solutions? You build a prototype, so you find, like, you brainstorm, and then you build it, and then you go
Yeah.
back and you fix what's wrong. So I mean, I feel like that can apply to anything, and that's what I do with my artwork. So
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I think on our previous episode, Richie, that's we spent like 30 minutes just talking about that on like art fatigue. Like you don't necessarily need to be doing art every single day. Like it's okay to take a break. And people, I think they overwhelm themselves, and that's why maybe they stop or they don't do certain things. But it's okay to not be consistent at it. It's okay to take a break. And that's
yeah,
like a
no,
lot of
take
people
a
to understand.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, take a break, relax a little bit, because sometimes during my breaks, those are the times that I think about the best ideas too. Sometimes when I'm too focused on selling artwork and I'm just daily constant, I don't I stop thinking about new stuff. And it's important just to have a little bit of a break between all that.
Yeah, don't overwhelm yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And I've seen like projects go by for like months and months. So even like a simple like painting or whatever can go like months before it's done. But that's
Yeah,
because the artist needs like a break or something to like really put their actual like best effort into it. So it's okay to take a break. But
yeah.
for you, like when do you know when art piece is done? Like do you have like a special signature mark you put on it, or how do you know when you're
You know what? I can actually draw it for you. It's just my initials. Let's see if I can get a little piece of paper and just show you. Let me draw it out real quick. It looks something like this. This marker's a little dry. I don't know if it'll show backwards. It might. So it's an R and then a dot and then an O. And that's like my signature of like, okay, I'm done.
yeah. No, but like when you're making the art piece, so like how do you know when it's finished? Or like you just know like you're done and I'm gonna put my stamp on it. Or like do you
You
want like sometimes like as an artist, I feel like you want to add maybe more to the painting, no? Like every single time you see it.
you know what? I feel like once I started really seeing what art education is about,
Mhm.
um, you start subconsciously like I guess I know it now, but I'm like, okay, is it balanced enough? Does it have enough contrast?
Yeah.
So I start thinking about that in my head, and I'm like, okay, it needs a little bit more here, or it's not as vibrant as I would want it. So I start adding those, but it is actually that's a difficult question to see when my artwork is done. I feel like once I'm like done with it, like I'm tired of like
Yeah.
I'm tired of painting, it's done. Like
Yeah.
or the idea in my head or like the energy that I had is finally all spent, then I'm like, okay, I feel like this piece is done.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I really wanted to ask you this question because you're an art educator, and so a lot of people when they're getting into art, they want to have the best supplies as far as like the best paintbrushes, the best colors, and all that. But as yourself as an artist and also an educator, like what resources would you recommend? Somebody who's just starting out who maybe can't afford the most expensive stuff, or like what are other things you can start with?
You know what? I believe it or not, I grew up kind of without having like the most expensive brushes or things like that. I still don't. Like I trust me when I say like my supplies are not that great, but it's what you do with them and how you learn how to use them. So if you're not really confident, you're like, I really need the best right now, I would just say honestly, go to Walmart, go to Michael's. Michael's has a lot of good options, okay? But even Walmart, like even just a simple watercolor set to start out with and practice, that's a good option because I've created stuff from crayons and just a pencil and like regular markers, and it's just really how you use that product. If you learn how to use it correctly, that it will become an art piece.
Yeah.
Yes, sure, like the most expensive stuff, not the expensive, but like the better quality stuff, of course, is going to give you some better results if you want to go a little bit more professional. But just start off with simple. I feel like that's for me, that's what works.
Yeah, no, yeah, anything works. Like I always tell people, a pen and pen and paper. That you could do
Have
something
you
like
seen some of those pen drawings? Yes, like
that. Yeah.
that's
I used
literally like
to
just
I used to get a piece of paper and then put it on my computer screen and then trace something out on Google, like a soccer player or something.
yeah, a lot of my kids do that too.
And they used to come out so great. And people were like, "Did you draw that with like by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like I didn't use anything. I try to be all cool about it." And they're like, "You should draw me one like right now." And I'm like, I don't know about that."
Give
I
me a second, like give me
was like, "Let me go to my computer real quick. Let me see."
yeah.
No, but okay. So after you're finished with your art pieces, how do you go about pricing them now? Like,
So I before I start, I do recommend um thinking about an hour, like how much of your time, like how much of an hour, like what's that worth for you? Like if you spend an hour doing this painting, right, or whatever it might be, how much are you worth? How much is your time worth?
Right. Hmm.
So I do it based off of that. And then I add my pricing as far as materials. Um, so let's say my hourly rate is 15-20. I feel like that's a good rate, like kind of like how you get paid, right? Like for a job. And then I go for based off of that. And then I add in a fraction of the supplies that I had to buy for that.
Right.
And
Hmm.
that's basically how I sell. Yeah. For me personally, I had people tell me that I need to price my stuff more, but at the same time I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, no, you're right. Like it does depend on like how much time you put into it and then what materials you use. Because you as a as an artist, you're also a business owner. So you're like you want to make your money back with what you spend.
Yeah.
Make it. So I agree. So that's why like when people say they're like, oh, that painting's like $300, like it's so expensive. I'm like, well, no, not really,
How
because
many days did that artist spend to do
exactly,
it?
you know,
What supplies did they have to buy?
exactly. I tell all my friends I want to take them to art shows that because they don't know how the art works. So they're like, oh, $500 or 200, like that's expensive. I'm like, not really. That's pretty good, depending on what they did to it, So
Yeah.
yeah. So I kind of want to split this next question into two different questions. The first one is like, what mistakes have you made and how did you learn from them? And then the second one would kind of be like, what sacrifices did you have to make in order to keep being an artist or to keep following your path as a creative artist?
Okay, so can you repeat the first one again, Isaac?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the first one is gonna be like, what mistakes did you come out to that you learned from? And the second one is like the sacrifices.
So mistakes wise, I feel like the main mistake is I didn't just focus on one thing at a time. Um, so I have caught myself multiple times. I think this time I kind of know where my main focus is. But I focused too much at once. So I was um I was doing fashion design, then I was drawing on shoes, painting on shoes, selling those. Then I was focusing on doing t-shirts and then custom designs. I would make vases. I was just like all over,
Yourself, yeah.
but it was a form of me. Like I just wanted to try everything. So, but my biggest mistake, I think, was that yes, I wanted to try everything, but I needed just to focus on one thing first and really put my all into one thing and see if I liked it before I went on to something else.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. And then the second one, I'm sorry.
The second one is like, okay, so like what sacrifices did you have to make along the way of being an artist? And how did that get you through?
Sacrifices. I
Or like
I
critical points you hit as well.
say that again.
Like critical points that you hit along the way as well. Kind of like that.
So I think as an artist, you really, for me personally, I did sacrifice time. Um, in general, as far as like maybe with my friends at a certain point, because I was so focused, like not only was I going to college and focusing on my career, but I was also focusing on my art. I mean, I still am, and that is partially why I wish that I had a little bit more of a balance, because it's really difficult sometimes to balance my time from being an art teacher and still doing art. So I think that was a sacrifice, is just the time part. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people need to know that too if they want to be an artist because they learn all the beautiful parts of it, but they also don't see the
Um,
sacrifices they need to make to be an artist. So that's
yeah.
always this question is very important because they get to see like people who are already professional artists get to see like, okay, what did it take them to reach the point that they're at now?
Yeah, you will have to sacrifice some time, but I feel like once you're pretty established, you'll find a balance in things.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And so this next question is kind of interesting. I like to ask this is like, what do you dislike about the art world and what do you like about it? It could be one thing or many things.
What do I dislike?
Everything. I'm joking.
No. Um, I feel like sometimes, but I feel like that's everywhere. Like sometimes the things that I dislike about the art world is I have gone to certain shows and um some of the crowd is not as respectful as I would expect it to be. But maybe that's just me and my own opinion. Like, um, the there's people who respect the art and there's people that don't.
Right.
And I feel like what I don't like is when they do not respect it, because I feel like, oh, it's just art, let me like touch it, or like,
Yeah.
or just I guess that part, in the sense, like when they don't really respect, like, or they're like talking when there's like a movie showing, like not a movie, like a, maybe like a music video is showing and they're talking in the background. Like,
Right. Mhm.
it took time for that artist to showcase their artwork. So I feel like that respect part should be really learned, from certain people.
Right. Mhm. No, and I feel like what I dislike is that as well, but I also dislike that it's underappreciated art,
Yes.
very underappreciated. And so that's something we're trying to lift up is like we
And
just say from the very beginning, it's like the world would be black and white and it would be way worse than having art right now.
yes, and that's one thing, you know what, that's why one thing that I do want to, like, and like tell my kids and try to show them, like, please understand that there's so many things that would not be as good if there wasn't art, and you need to understand and see that it is important.
Right.
So,
Mhm. And what's your dream project in art? Like I've seen like this one artist create huge sculptures in like different areas across the world. Like what's your dream project?
you know what, have you heard of Meow?
I actually went last week.
Yes. Oh, I know it's open again.
I have
So
a
I am not,
little
I
bracelet.
yes, I have the same one. I love Meow. It's my favorite place ever. It's like Alice in
Yeah.
Wonderland. So
Mhm.
I am a constant visitor. I've been trying to go since it opened again, but I am a constant visitor to Meow. And one of my dreams is to have a kind of Alice in Wonderland installation that I get to build myself and, do the artwork for, and it's interactive, and just that is my dream currently. So that's what I'm focused on.
Like have a whole room in there of yourself just like themed out. That is so amazing.
Yes, man, and honestly, it's, I actually talk to, see, connections. I talk to the people there, and you just really have to send them a portfolio of your stuff,
Mhm.
send them an idea, and they can actually tell you, hey, here's a wall, here's a space.
And that's another thing. It's like you never know until you reach out. Like, and it could even be super simple. Like you might think it's so hard to reach these people, but no, it's super simple.
It's an email, text.
A whole like email or text can change your life nowadays. Like
Yes.
you could message the president right now and he'll respond, and you could be the next president.
Yeah.
The digital age nowadays is just crazy how things are
It's
working.
really nice though. It is to be this advanced now, because I feel like it was a lot harder before.
Oh yeah, and if you weren't an artist, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't an artist, what would I be doing? That's a good question. Because again, I think everything has to do with art. I feel like
That's
I
yeah,
think about when I retire, and I do like, but that's a makeup artist. See,
like
um,
artist is art. Yeah, you gotta
yeah,
really think about this one.
yeah. I feel like I thought about, like, when I retire, and I always also like party planning, just the whole part that goes into, like, the behind the scenes, like getting the event together, the stuff for it. Because I didn't really grow up having like birthday parties. So once I actually started being able to, I'm like, oh my God, like there's like a whole like life of party planners that exists.
I feel you. When we plan our events, it's like a whole different world. You know.
Yes, and like, okay, what's the drinks? What's this? The invitations. And I actually really love doing that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe that.
And
Yeah.
but even that's art though too. Like you
Yes, so I don't know, man. Anything.
like you have to make it a creative event as well, like something that's like catch eye catching. Not like just some
Yeah.
boring. So
Yeah.
literally, like everything is art. I can't think of one thing.
No. I mean,
Even a lawyer's art. He has to be fancy with the words he uses. I'm sorry.
he does, yeah. You have to be very lyrical and like
Put
how
out a
do you
whole
say?
song and rap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so before I let you go, those last two questions I told you from the very beginning. You know, compared to where you're at right now, what is something you wish you would have known when you first got started?
Not to be so hard on myself. Not to like look down on my art and think that it's ugly or that people won't buy it, because I was surprised at how many people actually supported my art. And if you are that person right now, like I really want you to think and know that there are all types of people and all types of markets for your art. Believe it. So
No, I agree. I agree. And any piece of advice that you would give out to anybody starting up? So you're an art educator. So what would you tell your students?
don't give up. Just keep trying new things, just keep trying new things. If you like something, keep at it, keep going, and you'll find like different worlds and different opportunities that way. So
Just try different things, experiment. I always say
yeah,
the same thing too. It's like you won't know if you like pizza unless you try it.
yeah, some kids end up liking watercolor, some kids like doing 3D things, and that's where it sparks, like for me, if it wasn't for me going and getting that opportunity of like, hey, do some blacklight art, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, you
But
should try it.
yeah, yeah, just try it.
Exactly. So where can people find you? Where can people reach out to you if they want to talk to you? You know, things like that.
So I am mainly on my Instagram. So it's art by Rocio, Rocio. Art by Rocio. And I also have a social Instagram called Morning Dew. So they're both connected. So if you find my art one, then you can add me too.
I find them all over the place. Cool, awesome. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I like having artists on here because each person has their own different creative mind. And just dig into it and see how they got there. So I love
Yeah.
it. So um,
No, thank you so much, Isaac. I really I was really excited about this. A little nervous, but excited.